Hi Carol, I just wanted to shoot a video to kind of show you how I would approach this design if I was creating it, and I know that you want to remove the motif in the middle. So what I did, hope you don't mind, is I took a screenshot of the design and I just created it as artwork and put it right next to it. So you can see over here in my sequence view I have two pieces of artwork. Now whenever I'm working with a design like this, there's been posts in there that says combine it together, which is definitely what you want to do, but at the same time I always make a copy. So I always have a copy of the two pieces of artwork, and that's because I'm probably going to want to use those later. So I'm just going to change the color of them, and I'm just going to minimize the first one. I'm going to keep it up there, but when I'm going to take these two right here, in order to remove that fill pattern inside of the Shamrock here, we have to combine it together, and so we have to select both pieces at the same time, and then we just come up to this icon right here that says combine. It's also located up here in the top, or there's even a keyboard shortcut which you see when you hover over it at the top. It says Alt+C on your keyboard, but I'm just going to click this button and watch what happens over here in the sequence view when I do that. If I come over here, now you can see it's just one object, and what this basically means is it's punched the Shamrock through the square and making it one piece and making a hole where the Shamrock is. That's basically what that combine does. So by combining it, if I fill it, you'll see that all it is this area right here in this blue. So you know that you have it cut out, and now when you apply a motif pattern to it, it will actually just apply it in this blue area. So let's go ahead and do that. I still have it filled here. I'm just going to come down here. I have it selected. I'm going to come down here to my motif fill, and I'm going to click on motif fill. And this is going to apply a basic motif pattern, you can see here, to the design. Now this is pretty large. When I took the screenshot, it was a pretty large design, so we can kind of look at it here. If I change it over to inches, right now it's at like 24 inches wide, which is pretty big. So let's go ahead and let's just make this, I don't remember what you said in your post how big it was, but let's go ahead and change this over to basically like an 8-inch block. And I'm going to do the same thing to this other artwork here. I didn't have it selected at the same time, so I'm just going to type in 8 here, hit apply, and this should get it all to the same exact size within the area. And I'm going to just focus on this. So I'm going to zoom in. I want to see this pattern a little bit, so I won't go all the way. But I'm going to come over here to this fill pattern now, and just, I'm not sure which one you used. It looks like a heart shape a little bit. I don't think it's this one though. I guess it doesn't matter all that much, but just wanted to kind of get it similar. Let's just try this one really quick. This is obviously not the pattern, but you can see it's somewhere close to it. The important part is that you can tell that it didn't apply it in the center. So if I hide this one, you can see this is the design that I'm working with. And the main reason why I like to keep the artwork as well is I'm not sure in the design if you did this as applique. I can tell that this is a steel with a run over the top of it, so I assume you use the steel run tool down here at the bottom. I'm not sure if you're wanting this to be applique or not. And when I look at this design, and I especially see this area right here, I wanted to kind of address that at the same time on what you can do to make it look a little bit better in this area. So I'm going to zoom in here, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab this piece of artwork here, and I'm also going to be grabbing this one. Let's go ahead and apply to this one, my selection tool here. I'm going to come in here and apply this steel run because it looks like that's what you used. I'll make this like a 4, hit apply, and if I put it in 3D view, you will see that it actually does have a running stitch. Let me go ahead and put this at the bottom. So you can see that it does have a running stitch over the top of that satin, and that's kind of how it was in the artwork. If we look at it over here, you can see that it has a run stitch over the steel stitch. So we're getting pretty close here. The last part is doing the shamrock. So I'm going to grab this piece of artwork and I'm going to just turn it into a steel stitch. And I'm not sure if you had it as an applique or not, but you can see that it's kind of, it made a mess out of it, right? So this is something that happens from time to time, and it can be in the way that the outlines are created. The part that really concerns me is this right in here. So what I want to do with this is, there's a couple ways you can handle it, and it's all by the corner type. You have different things like a mitered, you have auto turn, lapped, and if I choose these different options, you can see that it will kind of affect this corner area. At the same time, let me just select this piece and turn it into a running stitch. So you can see that everything looks fine when it's a running stitch. It just kind of turning it into a steel just kind of made it look a little off here. Let's go ahead and change this to about a 3.5 millimeter. Okay, so you can see in this area right here, it's not looking too good, right? I'm going to go my start point and end point. You can see I start here, I end here. If I just move the start and end point, you can see that it will affect this design a little bit, and that looks good right there. It looked like it cleared it up, but at the same time, I just don't like how this corner is being handled. So right now it's at a sharp. You can do a bevel, and you can see that that cleans it up as well. Another thing that you can do that is something that sometimes you want to do when you're dealing with a corner like this is, I'm going to move this endpoint here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to go to split line. And what this does is it separates it. So if I right click here, you can see that it's now 2 pieces. And if I bring that back up, let's say that I kind of try to start it and end it around the same area here, you'll see that what it does with the corner, it actually kind of combined it a little bit. Let's see here. But the corner is much better than what it was. And that's all because I kind of broke that apart. Let's go back into here. Let's take this. Let's zoom in here. So you can see it's like kind of overlapping each other. This is the other line. This isn't the line that I want. This is the line that I want here. So you can see that you have this line, you have this line. So if I right click, you can see that it's going into a point now. Let's see here. If I zoom out. So just doing something as simple as that can really help in that corner area. And so now this looks pretty good. There's a possibility that you had this as applique, and if you did, it's pretty simple. You can just copy and paste it a few times. Like, let's say that I'm going to do this as applique, just in case that's what you're wanting to do. I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to paste it one more time. Okay, and what I'll do is I will turn these two into a running stitch. And what I like to do with my applique is you have your placement stitch, Then you have your tack down. I will change the color of the tack down so that the machine does stop, allow you to put the fabric down. I'm assuming that I'm going to be cutting the fabric manually, not using a fabric cutter. And if I was using a fabric cutter, I would indent this a little bit so that it grabs the fabric when it does the placement line. But if you're just gonna do a placement, lay the fabric down, and then do a tack down, you can do it right over the top of each other, because after this tack down stitch, which is the second one, I will cut the fabric and then it will stitch the last object right here. So this is just a way that you can make your own applique without using the applique tool. One of the things that I do like to do on the tack down stitch is a lot of times I'll make it a double run, so it goes over the same area twice. I do like to use a little bit shorter of a stitch length because I don't want the stitches to pop out. Okay, so pop out of the satin stitches there. So the other thing that I do a lot is I make sure that I'm around 3.5 or a 4 millimeter width, just giving myself some room. But this is basically, if you look at this design, we just recreated it. Just did a couple things to clean it up a little bit, but that's kind of how I would approach it. Obviously, I didn't change my colors and I didn't use the same motif pattern. But if you take a look at this design, I didn't resequence it yet either, so I can go ahead and do that as well. Because if I was doing this design, I would definitely do this pattern first before the applique, which is right here, and then I would have this border stitch go. Then I do the tack down, or the placement line, the tack down stitch, and then the border. So it's actually in the correct order. If we do a slow redraw here, you'll see what it's going to do. It's going to do that motif fill. And let's just go through it really quick. And the reason I would do it first before the applique, if that shamrock was an applique, is because I would want it to kind of be underneath of these satin stitches, and before the fabric is done, it'll just look a lot cleaner that way. Then it's going to do that border, and the placement, and the tack down. And so that's kind of the way that I would approach it, and then I would just save the design and work with it. So I hope that that helps. There is one other thing that I can show you that I like to do if I'm doing a design like this with a satin stitch, is a lot of times I will come in and I will make it the same width, that artwork, like a 3, or I think I did it as a 4 there, and I hit apply. And a lot of times, instead of using the still stitch, I use this as a border, and I just use the regular satin tools, and I just go around the design with the satin stitch tool and make my own satin border. It's just cleaner. You have control over like this area a lot better, or any sharp angles, you have the ability to work with them better. So I'll come in and use a lot of times the classic satin or the regular satin, and I will just, you know, digitize my own border, but I'll use that as a reference, the artwork. And that's just a really I do that a lot with applique, and you know, I'll do the whole thing. I'll make it as a piece of artwork, and then I'll make it a border, the artwork with a thicker border, and I'll just digitize right over the top of it. It just makes it easy to control sharp angled areas and less editing, you know, of what the steel stitch will do. So just want to show you that too. So I hope this video was helpful, and sorry it took me a little bit to do it and get it over there, but those are some of the things that I do when I'm digitizing a design like this.